fiction, science fiction, horror, fantasy, crime, LGBT, thriller.
You have now entered the House of Mystery with your hosts, Eric Shapiro, David North Martino, John Copenhaver, and Al Warren on 106.5 FM Los Angeles,
102.3 FM Riverside,
and 105.0 AM Palm Springs.
Welcome back into the House of Mystery. I'm Al Warren, of course, and Mr. David Rose Martino is back in the room doing his karate.
That's right.
What's going on?
Why is Rose back?
Well, I don't know. I was tired of Joe.
I see. Oh, yeah.
The boxing
Boxer
wasn't
Joe.
working. Yeah,
No.
Boxer Joe wasn't working, and
No.
we have to go back to Rose because it's sweeter.
Yes.
It's very
That's true.
mafioso. It's very
Yeah. Rose by any other name.
Oh, I'm not even going to touch that. Speaking of roses, okay, we're going to get into it. We've got a real rose with us today. We've got an author, a publisher, a radio host. He's a dancer too, but by profession. Mr. Ron Chepesiuk. He's got a new book, Bad Henry, Murderous Rampage of the Taco Bell Strangler. So, Ron, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alan. Good to be here.
Well, Ron, you do a lot of things to do with the mafia and the gangs and all that stuff. So how did you come across Bad Henry and that Taco Bell Strangler?
It's a little bit out of my usual expertise, because you're right. I write about the mafia and all this, and this is a serial killer. I never did a book before on the serial killer, and this was a really big case in the news back in the 94 when they arrested him. And in fact, it became the biggest prosecution ever in North Carolina. And followed the case, of course, because I lived on the North Carolina border in a city called Rock Hill, which is like a suburb of Charlotte. And I followed the case, and I said, wow, this is really interesting. A black serial killer that was under the radar, operated within a 5-mile area, killed 10 women, and they didn't really know anything about it until he screwed up. He was high on drugs, and he started to make mistakes. And I said, this would be a really interesting book. And then I looked at the people that were chasing him. Like, they had like Dateline and CBS, 60 Minutes, all this. And, I read in the newspaper they were chasing him. And I said, wait a minute. I said, someone's going to grab this. Somebody probably with more credentials than I have. And I said, I don't know if it's worth it. So I let it go. And then about 2 years ago, I was thinking about my next book, and I was on the internet, and I ran across a reference to him, and I said, oh, Henry Wallace. I said, I remember him. So I said, I wonder what kind of book ended up being written about him. And I went on Amazon, couldn't find anything, and I went on the internet, and I found a lot of stuff, background stuff on his case, but no book. And so I concluded there was no book written on him, and I couldn't believe it, because he's one of the most unusual serial killers. They were saying that he was the first serial killer that knew all of his victims. And I found out, because I had a woman on my show, that she wrote a book called The Tuskegee Strangler. And I don't know, she may have been on your show too, but she was on mine, Lisa Long. And she had a guy, it was about a serial killer named Jerry Marcus. And he was actually the first. He was black too, but he was there before Wallace. He killed about 6 people. But it was still a fascinating case, and I couldn't believe that nobody had done a book. And I said, well, I'll try my hand at serial killing.
Oh yeah,
writing. And so,
glad you added that right.
Yeah. So I put together a book proposal and sent it off to Wild Blue, and on the same day they accepted it.
Wow.
So it was like it was not even the same day. It was like hours. I sent it to my agent, and she said, you're not gonna believe this, but they want to do the book. They've already sent the contract. And I was still in my chair,
Yeah.
I had just finished the letter. I mean, it was like that. So
Yeah.
I did that. And then, I started to write the book and, did the research, and I had a problem. Nobody would talk to me.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
The cops were embarrassed because they did a really shoddy job of investigating this murder, and they were highly criticized. It became racial because the black community thought that they had slacked on the job and didn't really pursue this guy until it was too late, until there were too many murders on that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then the relatives and associates of the victims that I identified, a lot of them wouldn't talk either because they didn't want to talk about the case. They wanted to forget about it, or just decided that it wasn't worth it. And so it was a little difficult in that respect. But I did have a lot of information. I went down to the courthouse, and he had given 10 hours of interview when he was captured on March the 12th, 1994. And they were amazing. They were really detailed, where he just let it all out.
Right.
And he talked for like 10 hours. He went through every murder and all that and provided a lot of graphic detail on that. So I had that.
Yeah. Yeah.
On that. The court records were missing. I couldn't find the court records.
Oh.
But I was able to get enough material, interesting material, interview enough people that I was able to put together a book. And it took me about, from contract to submitting the finished product, it took me about 10 months to do it.
Well, that's not too bad.
No.
Why did the cop drop the ball, so to speak? Was it because of his victims being, black women, or was it because of him being African American, or was it just the community, or what was the problem?
It was a little bit of everything. About 1992, 93, 94, when these murders were being committed, Charlotte was really growing. It was becoming one of the fastest growing cities in the country. And people were coming in, like 1 year there, I think 92, 94, or something like 15,000 new jobs were created. And it was just growing by leaps and bounds. But unfortunately, the resources of the county and the city were not. And in terms of law enforcement, they were trying to handle an increase in murders that sort of jumped maybe 3 times what it was before 92 to 94. And they were trying to handle it with seven investigative detectives, which is really amazing. And so and the murders were like probably about 119 murders a year. So you figure, each detective was handling 13, 14, 15 murders each a year. And so there was part of that. I think there's a little bit of racial insensitivity, let's put it that way. I think that they sort of wrote these girls off as lower economic creatures, and didn't pay that much attention to them. And then there was incompetence too. I mean, these murders occurred within a 5-mile radius, 10 murders, and Wallace knew every one of them. And for somehow they couldn't make the connection, in their investigation until he had gone through and murdered 10 women. And so it was a combination of all, but it was a black eye for law enforcement, and it showed because none of the cops wanted to talk to me except one, Jerry McFadden, who headed the investigation and was actually quite competent, and he was very honest in discussing the case with me. But he became my key law enforcement guy on that. But none of the rank and file detectives wanted to talk to me.
Well, I heard he wasn't, the usual serial killer, that he didn't fit the typical MO. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, I mean I interviewed one woman right here in town. She was from his hometown of Barnwell, and she went to high school with him. And she couldn't believe that he was a serial killer. I said, our Henry, a serial killer. He was black, but he ended up on the cheerleading squad, and he ended up on the student council. And he was quite popular. He rode the school bus, and when I told her the conditions that he lived in, really squalid conditions. She couldn't believe it, because none of that came out when he went to high school. And so he was able to, he had an affable personality, and he knew how to talk to women. They trusted him. He gave them advice, and they confided in him, and he was able to use that to his advantage. But he was a really bad person. I mean, a really bad person. The way he killed some of these women is quite amazing.
So, you call it Taco Bell Strangler. So what's the connection with Taco Bell and?
Well, many of the victims, and including Wallace, worked at Taco Bell. That's the connection. And so they wanted a quick catchy name, and Taco Bell Strangler, to identify him as the Taco. That's what the press identified him as, the Taco Bell Strangler.
Well, yeah, it's crazy. So he knew them all.
Yeah.
Or he knew.
Yeah.
And so, what was the reasoning behind his killing? Like, was he raping these victims? Was he attacking them in that way, or was he? What was he out for?
He came from a really screwed up background. He was born in Barnwell in 1995, November 4th, and his mother was brutal. She had a hard life. She worked in a textile factory. And she used to beat him and her sister. She used to call him everything: dumb, stupid, just constant abuse. They lived in a one-room shack, and he slept right next to the pots of crap that collected in the house, and he had to go out every morning and dump it out. And she used to parade him through the neighborhood in girls' clothes. And he had a sister named Yvonne, and she used to get Lottie Mae was her name. That was the mother's name. She used to get them to beat each other up, when she was too tired to do that herself. So, he had all of this abuse when he was growing up. And the psychologist that I talked to, said that he got this incredible pent-up rage against the opposite sex, which eventually accumulated and came out later on when he was older.
Yeah, Dave parades around in a dress too all the time. Dave parades around in a dress, but he doesn't kill. He hasn't killed any females yet.
Yeah,
that we know of.
Yeah. That we know of.
I like North. I like Dave North Martino.
Well, yeah. Yeah, see, that's a really good serial killer name.
Yeah, your show's confusing. He's Rose Martino. He's North Martino.
Well, he's North Martino's the serial killer name.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the man of many names.
Yeah, that just depends on what he's doing that day. So what was his MO? What did he do to these girls?
He raped them and strangled them. He had a hold he called the Boston choke, which was pretty sophisticated, and he would come in the house and sort of take them into their confidence. They would turn around and he would strangle them. He would take them on, and then he would take them into the bedroom, and they'd be half dead already, and he'd end up raping them, and then he'd leave. The first victim may have been sexual. He said in his confession that he was attracted to her, a woman named Carolyn Love. But the other ones, they were for various reasons. He had a really bad drug habit. Late 1980s and early 90s were a period of crack cocaine, and he rode the trend. He got into crack cocaine when he was in the Navy, and when he was living in Charlotte, when he came there in 1992, he started to do drugs. He had already done alcohol. He claims in one of his psychological reports that he was drinking 16 to 18 beers a day by the time he was in his teens on that sort of stuff. And he had done marijuana and all that. And, he worked at Taco Bell, the Black Eyed Peas, some of the other restaurants there, fast food restaurants. He was sort of a manager and a worker, but you don't make too much money then, right? So later on, he started to go after these women, to get money. He would try to get money. One of them worked as a manager at the Bojangles, which is a chicken place, real popular here. And, she knew the combination. And, he forced her to give what he thought was the combination. And it turned out it was a combination. And, he got money from that. And, he stole, ATM cards from a couple of women, but they gave him a false ATM number. And so that sort of really ticked him off. And he would watch the news because he thought that the police were going to catch on to him, right? And so he'd watch the news at night and nothing happened. There'd be no reporting on the news, he'd kill a victim and all that. And so he got really confident. And as he progressed, he got reckless, and started to make mistakes. He showed up on an ATM camera, he wore an earring, and that identified him. He stole one of the cars of one of the victims, Betty Bauckham, and he would erase all the evidence, right, fingerprints and all that. And he forgot that he had closed the trunk of the car and had put his palm print on there, and that became later evidence for him on that sort of stuff. And so as he progressed, he got more arrogant about the killings and more careless. And this led to a situation where no matter how incompetently the police were reacting to this crime wave, they couldn't help but get onto him.
Well, and if he's drinking 16 to 18 beers a day, amazing he got the taco orders correct.
Yeah, well, like I said, he was very, very smooth. I interviewed one guy that smoked marijuana with him, and was shocked that he was a serial killer, because he said he gave no evidence of that. He was very personable guy.
Did he get a formal psychological diagnosis?
Yeah, there's several psychiatrists evaluated him. That became important in the trial because they were trying to get him off the death penalty. The prosecutor, Marsha Goodnow, was adamant about getting him on death row, and the defense were just as adamant about trying to get him off on a mental charge, get him life in prison on that. They didn't really contest the fact that he killed these women, but they just said that he was mentally incapacitated, and they thought that he didn't deserve the death penalty.
Was he like a big, strong guy, or?
Oh yeah. I could have called the book Big Henry.
Oh.
Yeah. He was. He looked. Fat Albert.
Yeah.
He looked a little bit like him. Although at one point in prison, he later went up to 300 pounds.
Wow.
Because of the diet, and stress and all that. But he was quite a big guy. Yeah. Probably a little over 6 feet, 220 pounds. And these women were small.
Yeah.
They were young. They were between 17 and 35 years. One was 35. Most of them were in their 20s. And of course, they were no match for him once he put the Boston choke on him.
Yeah. Well, he must have liked his tacos. So how did they actually catch him? What was his mistake?
Well, is Gary McFadden, the police were under pressure to do something about this. Finally, they caught on that there was a crime wave in their neighborhood, and there was probably a serial killer and all that sort of stuff. And so Gary McFadden became in charge, and he was competent. He was a sergeant for several years, and knew what he was doing. And what happened was when one of the ladies were killed, he had a meeting, and he called everybody. He said, "We're going to find out who's related to who in this case. I mean, who has a connection to who." And so they asked all the people that they could find that were related to the case about who knew who. And there's all the murders, only one name showed up, and that was Henry Wallace. And so this started the investigation off, and they became concerned about Henry Wallace. They had the palm print. They had the ATM photo, of him using the ATM. They didn't have a clear photo of him. But they had the earring, and they found out later that he wore the earring. And then they had a really backlog of rape kits, right? It was, and I just saw a show today on Law and Order where that was the whole basis, that they had like a 3-year backlog or something incredible amount. But they had a big backlog with the Charlotte police, and finally they got around to some of these women, and some of Henry's DNA showed up. And then they found out that a couple of months before his last murder, he had shoplifted at this mall, had a $38 sweater that he stole. And so they started doing an investigation, and they found out that he was suspected of murder in Barnwell County before he came to Charlotte, and Allendale County, a nearby county to Barnwell, and that he had a record in the military, the Navy, that he had left the military on good terms, but there was something shady going on in the past. He had broken into a hardware store and got probation for that. And so he really became a suspect on that. And then they decided to pick him up, and they did. He was hiding in a friend's bathroom, and they found him and brought him in for questioning.
Was he married? Did he have a girlfriend? Did he have kids?
Yeah, he had a girlfriend, which was really weird because Sadie McKnight was his girlfriend, and she lived with his second victim in Charlotte, Carolyn Loud.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, she was her roommate, and he actually went with them to file a missing persons report.
Crazy. Yeah.
And her body disappeared. He dumped it on Statesville Road, and which is kind of a rural area, and they found it 2 years later. And the only reason they found it was because he confessed to Carolyn Love's murder.
Oh. On
that sort of stuff. But yeah, and that was part of his downfall. Was that she kicked him out of the house about a month before he was arrested because she was tired of his crack cocaine habit, know, and that he was into drugs, and she was a pretty straight woman, pretty good woman, and she kicked him out, and so that started him on a downward spiral on that, and he got kicked out of his apartment, and he sold all of his he had some weightlifting equipment in his house, and he sold all that. And a couple of his associates saw him on the street, and he looked in pretty bad shape on that. And that's like I said, he started to make mistakes because he used to take really good care of the crime scene. He would clean it up. He would try to misrepresent, what happened by doing little things. And he just got reckless. He started to, for one thing, he killed 3 women within the same apartment complex.
Wow.
At the end. And so that really set everything off.
Yeah, convenient. Do you know what it was that set him off on a person? Like what made him choose his actual victims? Like
I said, it was part necessity. A lot of it was necessity. He needed money for drugs. He was impulsive. He decided to kill someone before he went, or when he was there. And then sometimes he would kill them beforehand. There's a couple of women that he killed because he already planned to kill them. He planned to steal their money, and get their money, and then kill them. So there's a variety of reasons why he killed his victims. On that, I don't think you could put it on any one reason.
Yeah. Okay. You didn't have like a particular urge or need. It wasn't all planned out, and he wasn't trying to.
No. Like I said, a couple of the murders he did. He actually went there, and with the intention of killing them, stealing their money, and buying drugs with it.
Wow. So now he got convicted of, let's say, 9 counts of murder.
Yeah.
But you say later he's admitted while in jail that he's done anywhere from 20 to 90.
Well, that's kind of controversial because I talked to McFadden about that, and McFadden said that he always dangled that in front of him. He said, well, if I get a break on the sentence, or you reevaluate what you sentenced me to, I may tell you where some of these victims were. And there's never been any evidence that he actually killed anybody else. They were just suspected it because he had traveled a lot in the Navy. He was stationed out in the West, and I never ran across anything, like this Kilgo murder, right?
Right.
Beach murder.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy there, that he's committed some crimes, and they're looking for other places. In fact, right here in their county next to mine, he suspected that he may have some woman that he killed here on that, but there was no evidence that he ever did anything outside of the murders that he committed.
You're strange. Now, so was he a particularly smart guy or real clever? And
I saw his psychological evaluation. He was average IQ, and he graduated from high school, and he was smart enough to go to a couple of colleges, but he dropped out. I don't know why he dropped out, but he did, and ended up joining the Navy and working as a radio disc jockey in Barnwell. And actually, he was pretty popular as a radio disc jockey. He had a good voice, and the woman seemed to like him.
Well, was he doing the true crime story, or?
No, he was doing music. I mean, this is a disc jockey.
Yeah.
Like Wolfman Jack.
Now you're dating yourself there.
What?
Wolfman Jack?
Well, I'm not dating myself. The story's dated.
Well, Wolfman Jack was
The
probably
story
dead by the
in the
time.
1990s.
Yeah, he was probably dead by then.
No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't.
No.
What do you think, Martino?
Yeah.
I'm looking it up.
he's the guy that does that. He's the checker.
The truth sayer.
Yeah.
1995, he died.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
See?
At 57. Oh my.
Wow. See, I told you, you're dating yourself. So he was dying when this guy was.
No, the guy was big. The guy was big. I mean,
Yeah.
And,
that's really strange. But what, I find it strange because you mentioned earlier how, people were surprised. So he was a soft-spoken, gentle person or something. So nobody had a clue. Nobody had any idea that he was rough or violent or went off.
No, I mean, I told you, he smoked marijuana with one guy, with one associated, one of the victims. The cousin of another one, of Brandy Henderson, he ended up watching the news and the report of her murder, and commiserating with with George, the cousin, and he was just a chameleon, He really had people fooled, and he was able to manipulate people, gain their confidence. Like I said, the young woman, and of course they were young, they were early 20s, whatever. And, they didn't know this guy was a serial killer. I mean, God, he would take care of their kid and, give them advice and all that. And, so why should they suspect, him of being a killer?
So, okay. So what did he end up getting? Did he get sentenced to death, or how many life sentences?
Yeah. What happened was, they went through the, trial, and this was in the mid-90s where the death penalty was still in vogue, right? There wasn't that much sentiment against it. And he got the death penalty. And everybody thought that he was going to be executed. I think the average span of conviction to execution was like 9 years or something like that. And he was convicted in 97. And then of course, he went through the appeals, right? And they were denied. And in 2005 was supposedly the last appeal he had. And it was denied, and the conviction and everything stood up in court. And so, you would think that there would have been a execution soon after that, maybe a couple of years at the most, but nothing happened. And then the governor evidently put a moratorium on the death sentence because it was so controversial, right? For finding that they were executing a lot of innocent people. And so here he is on death row. He's been there for 27 years. And I asked Gary McFadden, I said, do you think Henry Wallace will ever be executed? His answer was, who knows?
Oh, it's a big question mark. Well, they're pretty much not doing it much anymore, are they?
Yeah. So he knew about it as much as I did about it.
Yeah. Probably not. Yeah. Probably not.
And speaking of Wallace, I was going to try to get an interview with him, but I talked to an ABC producer, the TV station ABC, who had done a documentary on him. And I asked her, I said, why wasn't Wallace in there? She said, we tried to get him, and he didn't want to be interviewed. So I said to myself, I said, God, it's going to be a lot of trouble going after him. And I said, if ABC can't get him, why do you think he's going to talk to me? And so I had most of my research, and I concluded that talking to him, wouldn't add anything to the book outside of an ego trip. And so I decided not to go after him. He's in Central Prison in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Well, and I guess he'll never get out. He has no chance of parole.
Oh yeah. But the relatives, have to deal with that. You know what I mean? And a lot of them, want justice as they see it, and they want him executed. So it's, it's agonizing for a lot of them.
Yeah. It becomes too long. It's a long process. I mean, this is from the 90s.
Yeah.
So look at, here we are in 2023, and it's still not resolved.
Well, he was born in 65.
Oh,
so
God.
what? He's 58 years old. He's still a young guy. I mean, he could be in prison for another 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah. It's crazy. It doesn't really resolve anything for people.
Yeah.
No end.
Yeah.
Wow. It's crazy. So what do you think at the end of the day, when this all happens and it kind of went down the way it did anything ever happen to the police? Did they reform anything?
Yeah, actually, it did have a reforming effect on the police. They started to get resources, especially technology, about a year after, because there was so many complaints, and so much animosity, especially with the black community, because of the way the case was handled. And so they started to get their resources. The police, I understand, have jumped from something like 7, as it was back in 94 when they were investigating the Wallace case, to like 25, almost 30 now, which is good because it corresponds to their population increase. Charlotte has grown by leaps and bounds. It's one of the fastest growing cities in the country on that sort of stuff. But you still have, problems, with George Floyd and all that. And I did some research, and there were killings of young black guys, for what the black community thought was no good reason. And so the problems, persist, but they're like any other city in America right now. But I think that the police resources and approach to crime has improved.
Yeah. Kind of crazy. So what was the trial like? Was it hard? I guess it wasn't hard to prove. Like, it probably went pretty quick.
Not actually. It went 2 years.
Why was that?
Yeah, they were fighting over venue, jury selection,
right?
And something like the Trump thing now that's going to happen. You know what I mean?
Something that lasts forever.
It's going to right. And so it went on for like 2 years, and before the verdict came down.
Right. Any of his family still alive, or that they're all gone now?
His mother's dead, and her sister's disappeared. I tried to find her, but I couldn't find her. His girlfriend, I think, must have changed her name, because I couldn't find any Sadie McKnight. So
it's quite a story. So at the end of the day, what do you think we've learned from this? Don't go to Taco Bell.
Don't go to Taco Bell. Yeah, take tacos over burritos.
Well, that's crazy. Well, so now listen. So what else have you got coming out now? You've done this. This is out now, and
well, I got the TV series, and we'll talk about my coming on talking about that. That's on VIX. It's a 30-part TV series based on my book on Carlos Later, Crazy Charlie. Right. And I've seen it. It's really good. I'm really excited about it. And it's the first season, 15 episode has been released last July 20th. And then the next 15 episodes, I don't know when that's going to be released. It'll probably be maybe 5 or 6 months or so on that. So I'm pretty excited. And I'm working on a book with a producer, movie producer, on this character from Dallas, Texas, oil man, and it's quite interesting, but challenging. And I'm working on that. We're hoping to turn the book into a screenplay, and maybe do a documentary as well and a podcast on it.
Oh, so, busy man.
I keep busy.
Yeah. What's the hardest thing about writing one of these books for you?
I think it's lining up the research. You know what I mean? Because that's one of the reasons why I like writing screenplays, because most of it is fiction. You know what I mean? Like maybe 10, 15% of the script is research. But you got to have your research. You got to have the documents if you're going to do the book, right? And people got to talk to you if you're going to get really interesting stuff for your book. And I was a little worried with this book because a lot of the people that I was hoping to talk to didn't. But fortunately, there was enough background material. You know what I'm talking about. There was enough background material that I was able to put together the book.
Were the police real receptive on this kind of case?
No,
because it was
no. They were absolutely. They started really pissing me off on that. I'm still kind of. I'm trying to figure out how to get even.
Well, give us some names. We'll go for them. Yeah, we'll hunt them down.
But no, they were like I think they were embarrassed, because of the way they were highlighted, because of the case, the way they handled the case and all that. But and I was worried about that because I thought I would have to talk to them, but I was able to get like Gary McFadden, who essentially oversaw the investigation, and he was a really nice guy and really helpful, and I was able to find material in the backlog.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about people. How can people find Ron? Have you social media, website? Where do they? Bars? Where do they find you?
Well, first of all, you got to know how to spell my name. And but you can check me out at my website. www.ronchepesiuk.com, CHEPESIUK. That's my website. On that, I got a crime show called Crime Beat with Ron Chepesiuk, and it's at artistfirst.com. That's artistfirst.com. And you can check my books out going to Amazon, Barnes & Noble. And you can, check with your local bookstore if you want to go that way. And some of them still carry it. If not, you can order. And I'm on Facebook, and I don't tweet.
Oh.
And you asked me if I danced. I don't dance on TikTok.
No, come on. Come on. What do you got to lose at this point? Come on. Right?
Well, I got to practice first on that. But I'm not on Instagram yet. I'm trying to figure out how to get on there.
Instagram's good. Yeah.
And on that. So, but you can check me out on Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook.
On that. And if you, I get a lot of requests, and I don't know if they're quacks or frauds or whatever. So, just put in your message that you read one of my books, or that you heard me on one of the radio broadcasts.
Yeah. We'll have everything up on our website so they can find you. I'll put your phone number up there too. How's that?
Oh, no, not really.
Oh, come on. A little bit of fun. You never know.
Yeah. Hey, you're coming on my show. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. I get around. I'm.
Yeah. You're coming on what?
It's all a blur. It's another week or so. Yeah, it's not very far.
Yeah, a week, right? You're coming on Thursday. What would that be? That would be the 10th.
Yes. Yeah.
August the 10th, right.
I'm going to talk.
So will this show be posted before then?
Yes, it will. It'll be up on the same day, actually, live.
Oh, wow.
And we'll be talking Bad Henry on your show about me.
Yeah, on that then.
Well.
Okay, that sounds
we appreciate
good.
it. Okay, our guest, his new book's called Bad Henry. And it's the Murderous Rampage of the Taco Bell Strangler. And our guest, of course, is the author of that, Ron Chepesiuk. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
You've been listening to the House of Mystery radio show. To find out more about our guests, hosts, or shows, go to www.houseofmystery.com.
Show's over for now.
Was it as good for you as it was for me?
Well, good night.
This has been a production of Something Weird Media.
I'll be back.